Hello and welcome. I am Annemie, and welcome to Euro Truck Soliloquy, the show where I play Euro Truck Simulator and soliloquize. Right, so today we're going to have a bit of a journey going on for us. We're going to pick up some cargo and take it from Felixstowe all the way up to Birmingham. Exciting, I know. Okay, let's have this going around. I actually did the sensible thing during the week that, I wasn't talking about this, to remap some of the controls, so I actually have a bit more of in-game. Nope, apparently that's not working. That is. But, oh well. No, I could have sworn that I changed the controls to let me change the GPS scale on the pad, but it seems like that one didn't take. Okay, so as you guys who watched last week will be aware, the general conceit with this show is that I play Euro Truck Simulator loosely and just talk about things that that was weird, and just talk about things which vaguely interest me from the regular world of news or from gaming news. Let's head up in this direction, I guess. So, the first thing I really want to talk about is Activision and Call of Duty. Now, many of you will have heard about this story already, and in fact there are multiple stories all layered up within the idea of Activision being slightly rubbish. So the first bit is that Activision have filed a new patent, which they claim isn't stuff that is currently in any of their games, but they want to file the patent anyway because, let's be honest, it might get to be in some of their games. And the idea is essentially, there we go, freight market. I want to go to Birmingham, not to Rotterdam. There's the trailer, there it is. And the idea is essentially that it's a process, an algorithm, for matching up people who haven't got expensive premium priced loot and matching them with people who have more experience than them in the game and do, with the hope being, why am I not moving as fast as I would like? Come on, let's get past that bit. Cool. With the idea being that the less experienced player will be like, oh, look at this cool person with all this these wonderful weapons and armor and so on. It must be, oh, I apparently can't read a GPS. That must be the reason why they're better than me. I've got to buy me some of that. Now, clearly, not everybody will have that mentality. And quite a lot of people, if they know about such a system and feel themselves being psychologically manipulated, I'm on the wrong side of the road. You can see what I mean about paying attention. If they can feel themselves being psychologically manipulated in that sort of way, they will instinctively recoil against it, right? They will say, ah, I see what you're trying to do, game. No, 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 no. I won't let you do that. I might have paid for some of your stuff before I saw this happening, but now, no, you're being too nefarious for me. But there are a lot of other people who won't notice it. Now, this is supposed to be a mature-rated video game, but a while back, Activision did... Well, this is going well. Activision did somewhat let it slip that they are interested in the children playing the game. And in fact, this was an argument against setting it in World War II because they thought the kids wouldn't know what World War II is. I don't really know. But yeah, they have admitted that they are interested in what children think of their game. And then they're putting psychological manipulation to try and get people to spend money in this game, which is also marketed at children. Now, I've just realised I forgot to set my timer, so I've got no idea how long I'm actually going to be talking on this thing. Just give me a moment, I will actually start it. That was the beep you just heard because I'm using a kitchen timer for reasons of glamour. So yeah, I don't think it's okay to put methods of psychological manipulation in games, particularly those aimed at children, to try and get people to spend money. Because you can just imagine a kid going up to their parent and being like, hey, parental person, this person who just pwned me online, they have all these cool weapons and armor which I don't have, so I'm not getting. Can you buy them for me? Can you get them for me? Let me just zoom in a bit because I want to actually see what's going on. So I think it's going up this way. Yes. You can quite easily see that happening, and while children will always do that. So for me, when I was growing up, it was Warhammer. And I would ask my parents for more of it, but they didn't put in... Or Pokemon cards, for instance. Pokemon cards actually do have similar nefarious loot box type elements going on inside them, because what is a loot box if not essentially a booster pack? And it works. Kids like me and others were constantly pestering their parents to buy more Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic the Gathering cards. And that's not good. Although, on that topic, I do want to say that I really like what Fantasy Flight does with its living card games. I've forgotten what the general term for them is, because living card game is a proprietary term owned by the board game manufacturer Fantasy Flight, where the idea is essentially that each month or so a new pack might be released, and you can just buy it, and you can have all the cards that are in that pack without gambling. How about that? You can just have the things and then play with them and build your decks and not be reliant on RNGesus to get as good a deck as someone else. It does get rid of the trading element, hence why they're not trading card games. But I don't think that's really a bad thing. So yeah, that's one part of the Activision rubbishness. Then there is the colossal insensitivity of having loot boxes drop down onto the beaches at Normandy, where there are people currently alive who saw people dying there. En masse. Not many of them will necessarily be playing the games, but how many of them might see their grandchildren playing them and seeing these areas of colossal loss of human life be defaced in such a way as to turn it into a background for gambling. Right, I'm not saying we shouldn't use World War II or anything modern as settings, but let's try to have a little bit of taste and decency here. It's not difficult to know that this is gross. And then we come into the additional layer on top of this, where Call of Duty will actually reward you for watching other people opening loot boxes. And the insensitivity of all this, particularly with the current backlash against loot boxes, the insensitivity to all these concerns from Activision is mind-boggling. That we don't want to feel psychologically manipulated. We don't want to feel like we have to subject ourselves to, for some people who play the game, something akin to psychological torture. Right, it's not. But if you've got a gambling problem, you would be almost advised to not buy this game because it is going to, in some sense, in some large sense, trigger your addictive personality, and that's not good. And while I am leery about slippery slope arguments, I would be quite interested in seeing if there is any research linking these pseudo-gambling systems in video games to later gambling problems. I don't think that research has been done yet. I've not actually looked it up, but I'm planning to once this video is over. But that would be interesting to me. And I feel like that research should inform our debate on this topic about how loot boxes should be regulated, if they should be regulated at all. If there's no correlation, if there's no chance that this will push people into gambling addiction, then fine, a lot of us might have been wrong on this. But if there is evidence, we need to listen to it. Okay. So, how far off are we? Oh, we're actually not too far. That's good. So, another one of the big releases of the moment. Assassin's Creed Origins. Now, I've had quite a lot of love for the Assassin's Creed series. I'm one of the few people who enjoyed Assassin's Creed 3. I enjoyed Assassin's Creed Rogue. That was an enjoyable game. I can't actually think of an Assassin's Creed game I've played that I didn't enjoy. There are a couple that I haven't finished. I haven't finished the two most recent ones, but I think that's about it. And I never played the original one either. But I don't think I'll be getting Assassin's Creed Origins. And that's for a very simple reason. I don't think my computer can handle it. Now you might ask, why? And a lot of people are asking this because they have mid-range computers, just like this computer that I'm running at the moment, mid-range. And they're seeing their CPU pretty much maxed out on the task manager. For no discernible reason except for a reason that Ubisoft deny, and that is that Ubisoft are running two different forms of DRM on Assassin's Creed Origins. One is de Novo, and I've forgotten what the other one is called, but de Novo itself is unpopular enough. I've got no real opinion on it. To be quite frank, I don't know enough about it. And I'm not here to actually talk about the particular implementation in this case, whether or not Ubisoft are actually tanking the performance of their game in order to implement DRM. Doesn't matter to this discussion because I just like to talk about DRM with this sort of thing in general. And I see it as ill-advised to make the pirated copies of games because there is no perfect DRM. All DRM can be hacked. This is fairly mathematically certain. Some might take more time, some might take less time, but it will be hacked. And given the fact that the internet is terrifyingly competent at getting what it wants, it generally doesn't take too long. And what you're doing by layering DRM upon DRM and restricting the performance of your game is you're objectively making the pirated copies better. The pirated copies that don't have to deal with all this rubbish. And on top of that, you are also pushing away people like me who might want to play your game. I mean, I have been a bit Assassin's Creeded out, and I wasn't particularly feeling like I was going to get this one even before I knew about all this potential DRM rubbish. You're making people who don't have top-end gaming PCs feel like it's not worth buying. I mean, some of that is mitigated by Steam's refund system, but I'd rather not go through that hassle if I can avoid it. Oh. I'm not really worrying too much about this journey. And that just seems a bit counterproductive. Now, the way that I can see the way to stop people pirating games is to make the non-pirated versions of the games better. Right? That's always the tack that was taken by film piracy adverts, showing before VHS tapes and therefore making those tapes themselves worse than the pirated copies, but let's ignore that for the moment. But showing really grainy and shaky footage and saying that this is what every pirated copy of films or TV would look like. Now that I'm older, I obviously know that that's rubbish, and I have engaged in my fair share of watching things that I possibly shouldn't have. I try not to now that there are other ways for me to do that. But younger me believed that, and that was a good way of getting people not to pirate things. But just actively making the experience worse, that's not so good. Other ways that I've liked were how games might punish you a little bit into playing them for getting a pirated copy. Now, the brilliance of this isn't the hilarity of what's actually happening, although that is brilliant. Starting the pirated copy looking normal, and having people know that, makes people worry that their pirated copy, which is starting off looking normal, isn't going to be. That's brilliant. Or other things like saying, yeah, you can play this game offline, unattached to a server, but if you want to access these special, I don't know, like say ship missions in Assassin's Creed Black Flag. If you want to... That car just drove into me that time. If you want to access these... How badly damaged is... Oh my... That stuff actually isn't damaged. Well then. But if you want to access these ship missions, or... I imagine it might be similar with, say, Dragon Age Inquisition and the War Room or something like that. You have to be online. And that way, it's giving you bonuses for playing this thing online, but it's not A, saying you can't play it offline, and B, it's saying that, yeah, we're not going to tank your performance. We're not going to do anything to the single player experience. That can be, if you can get past that stuff, get past our protections, you can pirate that. You can play that illicitly. Fine. But we're going to reward people who don't. And this goes back to something that is at the core of Birmingham to Manchester. That's my best price per distance? Sure. It goes back to something which is at the fundamental heart of, I'm going the wrong direction, this way, of Valve's philosophy, which is that you need to make piracy less convenient. Like, I did used to pirate video games, I used to pirate TV shows, I used to pirate films. I have since then watched most of the things I ended up pirating on legal sources anyway, because now I'm older and I have disposable income. I feel like I should, even if I didn't necessarily want to experience again, because I had experienced this in the past and enjoyed it. I felt like I should give something to the creators. And the existence of Steam and the existence of Spotify and the existence of Netflix makes all of this very possible. There's a reason that Game of Thrones is one of the most pirated TV shows currently. And that reason is that most people don't have HBO streaming service. Most people don't necessarily have, I think on the UK it's streamed using Sky. A lot of people don't have, especially how TV licenses are going these days anyway. Where's the actual thing? There it is. Okay. Nope, forward. So if you make it convenient, people won't pirate it. Let's see, where am I going? Come on. If you make it inconvenient, people will pirate it. And it's just that simple. Especially given that the majority of pirated copies of a game, or really anything, don't reflect a lost sale. And why don't they reflect a lost sale? Because the vast majority of people who pirate are kids, are teenagers, are people without disposable income who wouldn't be able to buy your product anyway. Come on, don't hit the fence. Or if you do, don't hit it very hard. There we go, we're good. Adults are much less likely to pirate. Case in point, there was a game which I really enjoyed when I was younger. It was one of those tower defense games on Newgrounds. Remember Newgrounds? Newgrounds was great. But it was a tower defense game called Cursed Treasure 2. And it was available for free. And it still is available for free on Newgrounds, and I think probably on Congregate, probably on Armour Games, probably on all of those sites where you imagine that it would be available. And it popped up on Steam, and the version on Steam cost a bit of money. I think it was like a couple of quid or something like that. And maybe had like 3 extra levels or something like that. But being somebody who enjoyed this a lot in the past, I was like, yeah, I've played this through in total maybe 3 or 4 times, just sort of passively. I like playing sort of tower defense games and other passive things. I mean, Euro Truck Simulator is one of those as well that you're not paying attention to necessarily while you're playing, and you can do other things like record some form of podcast. But yeah, I like playing those sort of passive games, and it had given me, it had killed a lot of time for me, so I wanted to give back to it. And it saddens me to see on their Steam page all the negative reviews left because it's essentially because it costs money and there are free versions of it elsewhere. If you want to play the free versions elsewhere, play them. They're not taking them away. They're just saying, hey, if you want this to be slightly more convenient, if you want Steam achievements, if you want these 3 extra bonus levels, maybe drop us a little bit of cash. It's why I think if I were ever to make a game, it would firstly be something which I'd be doing in my spare time, because I'm not a professional game developer. And I wouldn't charge for it, but I'd want to have a donate button. I can understand why not everybody wants to go that route, and I don't think that everybody should, but I think there's a lot to be said in trying to foster people to pay what they think is its value, sort of a pay what you want type scheme. Particularly when you are not an expert, you're not a professional in creating these things, and therefore also not a professional in pricing these things. I think that that's a worthwhile thing to do. But anyway, game manufacturers, don't tank the performance of your game by loading on DRM and making your copies objectively worse. Okay, so I saw a story on Eurogamer today. I get a decent amount of my news from Eurogamer, and let me just fiddle about with my laptop a little bit. Trying to concentrate on 2 different screens is a bit of a pain in the backside. There we go. And I didn't crash into anything. And what this story was, and I'm going to link to a couple of these things in the description, was that one of the Eurogamer reporters took a phone with them to BlizzCon. And on this phone was playing a video by a Twitch streamer by the name of, I should have written this down, I'm now trying to look at my laptop screen to read it while this is happening. So that name is, let me just pause that for a minute, there we go, N Weather Service. This is a female Twitch streamer, and that bit is important, who plays Overwatch. And this YouTube video, which I said I'm going to link in the description to this video, lists about, I think it's about 3 or 4 minutes. I'm not going to check right now, but it was a decent length video cataloguing some of the abuse that she has received based on being female. Now, a quick warning that this video is not suitable for work. There were quite a lot of very strong expletives directed at her for no apparent reason other than she was female. The mildest of the things that she was told, repeatedly in fact, on this video, were to get back in the kitchen, because apparently this is 2008 all over again. And yes, I know what some of you might be thinking. Kids are twazics. Not all of these were kids. Or at least if they were kids, their voices had pretty well broken by this point. And I don't think that that higher proportion of children get such deep voices while they are still kids. Or at least, well, you can still reasonably call them kids, like 13, 14. Like, I can understand silliness coming at that age. Get some more coffee. Need to actually power this speech. There we go. Have myself a nice little cafetiere set up. So yeah, This video by N-Weather Service was shown to various people at BlizzCon, and their reactions were recorded. And most of the people that were shown this video were women. And their reaction was very much, yeah. This happens. Might not have heard it to this degree, but it really doesn't surprise me. That was a lot of the reaction. And the men who were with them were like, yeah, I play Overwatch with her. This isn't news, this is just what happens. I think there was one guy by himself who was shown this video, and there was shock. Wrong button. Oh, my beams were already on. Well then. Despite the fact that it's only like 4:30. Yeah. So, the question then becomes, and this is what the video went on to, what should be done about it? Now, there are rules in place, presumably in one of the Blizzard Overwatch Oilers, that don't allow for abuse. And those should absolutely be used. But it's a bigger problem than that. I did not mean for that to be quite so jovial, but well then. It is a much bigger problem, and one that I don't think can necessarily be tackled with bans. Although bans should be used whenever it's spotted. It's too pervasive for that, and is not restricted to Overwatch. So I do not generally play the online component of games. I played a little bit of the online part of Metal Gear Solid Phantom Pain, and that was mostly because I felt like I had to, because my resources were taken ransom and I could only access, and I needed to get more of them. Right, so that was Konami's psychological manipulation. So I've played a little bit of that, but I don't think I actually played with another human in that game. And the reputation of online gaming is bad. And that reputation itself is enough to put off people like me from trying it. Because I don't want to be either subject to any form of harassment or witness other forms of harassment, and I don't think I could not get involved if I heard it. And I would get angry, and I would get upset, and that would probably just end up making things worse. I am not a diplomatic person. And you gotta think, how many other people is just the reputation of online gaming keeping from engaging in online gaming? And therefore you get something akin to a confirmation bias happening, where only the people who are okay with horrific and vulgar treatment of other people play these online games. Now, there are obviously exceptions, and if there are any of you online who are watching this and who engage in this sort of behavior, who tell women that they can't play just because they're women, who tell women to get back in the kitchen, who tell women, I will see you next Tuesday, and so on and so forth, I want to keep this channel generally as vulgarity free as possible, although games that I play might have bits in it, but I would rather not speak the words, although I am fine with them being spoken off the video, if that makes sense, but that's by the by. If you are one of those people, the girls you play with online are better than you. They just are. Have you had to put up with, most likely, years of abuse, quite possibly in your most formative years, telling you that you can't play? Telling you that you are not welcome? Telling you that your only worth is to be gawked at, or potentially to make food, or just generally be of service to men. If you have had that, then fine, you might be as good as these women. But they have gone through that, and they still want to play. Queer people online have had that and still want to play. What have you done? But as I said, a lot of these kids will grow out of it. But that doesn't make it any better now. And it has to be a community solution. Why not? Let's go Manchester to Rotterdam. That seems reasonable. Can I afford any other loans at this point? That's a question. Ooh. Oh, no, that's blanked out. Well then. But this is also bigger than just sexism. I say just sexism, it's not just sexism at all. It's bigger than sexism. I'm reminded of a few years ago when Dragon Age 2 was released and people getting incredibly upset at the writing staff, and David Gader in particular, who happens to be a gay man as far as I'm aware, getting incredibly upset that one of the companions, Anders, would try to hit on you. I think he would do this regardless of whether you played a male or female character. But he would hit on you, and how dare this man hit on me, a male character? I don't want to have this homosexuality thrust in my face. Say people who send women unsolicited pictures of their genitalia. And it's quite frankly stunning that in a community which seems to tend more towards the right than the youth in general, than the typical age bracket as a whole, that they would want these safe spaces. Away from queers and women and decent human beings. But sometimes I do despair. But then I remembered that there are wonderful internet communities that do exist online, that do care about human beings and about making, and who realise that inclusivity isn't a bad thing. That the more people who can enjoy a thing that you enjoy, the better. And I don't want any of you to think that I don't know that these communities exist. I've seen them. I'm a passive part of some of them. I like the fact that there are more and more channels online where caring about representation is a central part of what they do. And on that note, I would like to recommend the channel Outside Xbox for doing precisely that. I mean, the biggest online community I see that is just so positive is the Critical Role community. Some of you may have heard of, some of you may not. Critical Role is a weekly D&D game run by and for voice actors on Geek and Sundry. Oh, so I've got a real frog in my throat today. There's gonna be a quick cut here while I get some water, so I will see you in a second for you, or a moment for me, but excuse me. Okay, I'm back. Sorry for that. But yes, the Critical Role community, it has its fair share of the internet, shall we say, or the internet registered trademark of people who are negative and mean, but I've never seen such a wellspring of positivity where they get so many gifts sent into them and artwork made for them by adoring fans, including this like 7-foot stuffed bear and like props for TV, what looked like would be props for TV and film made for the characters, or sorry, made for the players, resembling sort of weapons and items of the character. And just people who will support each other in the comments and on Reddit and so forth. And it makes me so glad to see it. And it reminds me that not everything is rubbish. Not all people are rubbish. Not all of the internet is rubbish. Most of the internet is pretty good, because most people are pretty good. And that is an important thing to tell ourselves every now and then. But no, heading back to Ubisoft, actually, I saw another interesting article recently, which has the headline, again, this is on Eurogamer, Monopoly on Nintendo Switch takes ages to load. This version of Monopoly created by Ubisoft, and the port is so bad that apparently the main menu itself, just the main menu, not even the game, it's not loading a trillion chance cards or anything like that, the main menu takes 5 to 10 minutes to load. How? It genuinely boggles the mind. So this version of Monopoly has been released, I believe, on all the major consoles, and the only console that this problem exists on is the Switch. But how do you screw up a port job that badly, Ubisoft? And how do you not test it before release? I mean, I get if problems come up on PC versions that you weren't expecting. I get that PCs are all different, it's not a standardized system. So maybe you didn't test it out in a wide enough variety of PCs with a wide enough variety of hardware. Fine. But a console? No, 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 no. This very much stinks of a port job where they saw the issues because they had to have play tested it. And then either realised that they couldn't fix it, or didn't want to fix it. They didn't want to put the effort in to try and make it into an experience where you could at least get to the main menu before your tea gets cold. Oh, that's interesting. Definitely shows... Oh, what on earth was that? That the gameplay is in some way organic. Okay. And Ubisoft have managed to screw up Tetris before. I think with a similar sort of thing with loading times and so on. I can't exactly remember the details. I never played it because, oddly enough, I can get hold of Tetris for free online should I want to play it. But anyway, that's probably enough ragging on Ubisoft for today. Although I'm sure that some of you might think that there's never enough ragging on Ubisoft, because they're Ubisoft. So there's another article I saw, which was talking about Destiny 2. And that more than half of its sales were digital downloads. Non-physical media. And as someone whose last physical game that they bought was Assassin's Creed 2 on the Xbox 360, I can see why. I mean, I've not actually got a console, so I'm not digitally downloading on console, but I can't imagine a situation where I'd want physical media over a download. Physical media gets broken. It's a lot harder to break digital media. I still remember it was a harrowing time back when I was maybe about 10 or so, and I accidentally ran over one of my, I think it was the Allied disc for Red Alert 2, which meant that I could only play half of the campaign. Can't really do that with a download. I mean, other things can happen with digital copies, like the game updating to remove or add things that you don't want in the game and so on. I'm not saying that it's perfect, but it's a hell of a lot better. And I like that digital download is becoming standard, because it makes me think that publishers are more and more getting on the way out, particularly with the success of Hellblade, which you need to get around to playing at some point. But with the commercial success of Hellblade and various other indie titles, the only thing that publishers can really provide is startup funds. But with Kickstarter existing, and even things like Steam Early Access, despite the issues that, and the severe issues that has, there are ways to get around that. And Kickstarter also has issues, but I would much rather have people who play games making a decision as to which games get made, rather than executives. I feel like if you're going to tether yourself to one of those devils, and mix your metaphors, I feel like your consumers are a better devil to tether yourself to. And I really hope that we start seeing an end to physical media. Because if nothing else, it's a lot harder to file and categorize, and you lose things. But anyway, I think I'm going to wrap up when this I'm not actually going to get to the end of this journey, although there's a boat trip. I might be able to get to the end of this journey. We'll see. How far away am I from? I'm quite close to the sea, and that's about an 8-hour trip, I think. Something like that. Let's see how it goes. Because given that I didn't start the timer at the beginning, I'm probably going to be running over the hour mark, but... oh well, I had a decent amount of stuff to talk about. Let's just navigate around here. The other thing I've been seeing pop up with Steam, thinking about Steam, have they been actually putting a bit more effort into trying to publicising their films? Because I swear I never used to... I knew that films were on Steam for a while, but they never seemed to be front page material, and I swear I started seeing some on the front page. Well, that seems like a really weird direction for Valve to be going in. Given that Netflix exists, as mentioned earlier, given that Amazon Prime exists, I don't know why Valve would really be trying to push that. Sure, maybe some films that are related to video games might be worthwhile to have on there. Bundle into, say, your Hitman games, bundle in the Hitman film. Let's head to Europort. For general films, that's weird. Yes, I'm using the realistic graphics mod. Just so you're all aware. Wow, that was weird. Ghost car! There was a freaking ghost car! Okay, yeah, I'm pretty close. So... oh, wrong side of the road. Most of the stuff I've been talking about has been video game related this week. But I can't not talk about it. The shooting that happened in Sutherland Springs last night at time of recording, where a gunman walked into a Texas church and killed 26 people and injured many more. Now, I'm not going to go into a detailed dissection of all this, but there was something that made me very angry with this yesterday. Besides the actual shooting, which of course also made me deeply, deeply angry and upset. And that was the statement from the governor. Let me see if I can find his name again. Greg Abbott, governor of Texas, who said that his thoughts and prayers were with the victims. Now, I've got no problem with you if you're religious. You can pray to people, and sure. But when on his website he has a page titled Obama's Gun Control, and on this page it just has the statement, I'll pause this while I read this out to make sure I get it right. President Obama has plans for new gun control measures to be imposed via executive action. The plans will restrict American Second Amendment right and circumvent Congress. Sign the petition if you agree with Governor Abbott when he says, "Come and take it." Come and take our guns. If you want your thoughts and prayers to be with the victims of such a tragedy which is more and more becoming commonplace in the States, you better not sound like a drunken cowboy who has a hard-on for his weapons. Pray all you want. Send your best wishes to the people who have had their lives ruined. But don't be such a colossal arsewipe about doing it after you have voted time and again to keep Texas's open carry laws, which meant that the shooter's first crime was when he opened fire at children. At actual children who will now never know what it's like to grow up and make poor decisions for themselves like Greg Abbott has done. I know what I said earlier, but fuck you. I'm going to leave it here right now because this actually has gotten me incredibly angry, and it was quite difficult for me to actually start this video because I was incensed at the callousness of this statement. But I hope that this video has been enjoyable regardless, and if it has, please like and subscribe. And I hope that you do have a good rest of your day. I'm sorry for bringing the tone down at the end here, but genuinely, please do have a lovely rest of your day. Goodbye.